Hello, listeners. Today I have the pleasure of speaking to David Istier, who is the founder of Gutzy Organic and is a leader in the health, wellness, and gut health space. Now, in this episode, we talk about his journey into the field of gut health and his ins and outs in the CPG world and his professional life and how being fearless has led him to the success that he's experiencing today. Little sneak preview, it was not all perfect, and it required some guts. It had to be a little gutsy, it had to be a little fearless. So I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did. Welcome to the Live Fearlessly podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Benjamin Ritter, and it's time to get fearless. Okay, David, thank you so much for joining us. You were sharing right before we started talking, like right now, about a friend that was also in the CPG world, and I think about like the environment that we live in, kind of might dictate the environment that we work in, and I'd love to hear like when you first got exposed to the CPG community or industry, or even this idea of launching a product.
Sure. So my background, basically, I'm a little bit of accent here. So I was born in France, so got a big passion for food. So funnily enough, I ended up in the food industry, right? In this process, and it's been a great journey. I think the food industry is like a lot of communities. It's very rich and very unique, and you end up, when I look at where I am today and what I'm doing with my business. Everything has been about intro and relationship in the process, in that community,
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of said that you got brought into food, like you loved food, or from young age, French, and kind of connected to food itself. Like, what is it like growing up in France and food? Like, what is that? Is it because in the U.S., right? I'm like, okay, so I had dinner with my family. I had like hamburger helper, and my dad roasted some potatoes. I don't know what it's like in France.
Yeah, I mean, I guess every family is a bit different, but I come from the south of France, where it's a very agricultural region. So when I was growing up, in the summer you go and pick up apricots, peaches, and stuff like that in the fields, and also big wine region. I'm a big wine lover too. Great Côte d'Iron wine from where I'm from. So my father, my mom cooked, but my father was really the chef in the family. Also, it was not his profession, but he loved cooking on the weekend and stuff. And so you just learn to appreciate different dishes. Obviously, a lot of regional dish from where I'm from. Specialty like a gratin dauphinois, which is like this sliced potato with gratin with cream and very rich stuff. I'm near Lyon, and Lyon is the capital of gastronomy in France, and so very old school kind of rich sauces, a lot of sauce and stuff. So I learned to enjoy and appreciate good food. We had a garden as well. With had pigeons, had rabbits, and stuff like that. So you learn from your environment, and I never thought I would become involved in the food industry initially. You know, uh, it just happened to be what I started doing actually. And funnily enough, I started my career doing this not in France but in England. Talking
Oh,
about being different.
wait, so young David, munching on some peaches and apricots from the field, and maybe drinking a glass of wine. What were some of your initial career interests?
So I was big into sport, right? So Um, I guess I had some like good athletic abilities, whatever I picked, i.e., being a tennis racket or skiing or any kind of. I was pretty good at soccer, but I didn't play soccer. I think we touched on this just before, right? Everybody played soccer in France, or football as we call it in Europe, and I picked up a basketball, and that has been one of my childhood passion, if you will, that I still kind of try to do to this day. That brought me amazing places and developed amazing connection and friendship, right? And so sport is really a competitive sport has been a key thing for me uh, growing up, right? And so that's what I was obsessed with that, and I became obsessed with America because of basketball. And at the time, basketball in Europe was not really developed as it is not nowadays. And I remember like when I was a young kid, we had one channel that will show the NBA games late at night. That was the years of the Larry Bird and the Magic Johnson era kind of thing of the 80s. And I used to wake up, super early during the night to watch the games, and sometimes have the ability to record, and just got the bug for America through that and just started loving American sport, right? So, and here I am
Well,
today, something like, I don't know, 40 plus 50 years later. I live in New York City, and I've been in New York for 18 years now. So,
so we have France. That sounds like the UK.
yep.
Um, Imagine London at some point, maybe, and now in New York. So you shared some different kind of sports that you were a part of, and I remember being a kid watching the Dream Team. Watching
Uh,
Michael Jordan and Pippen, and then the Kukoc, and then DC Rodman came in later. But it made me fall in love with the sport too, and to watch that kind of athleticism. So then, what was like the first thing that maybe you got a paycheck for?
Hey, so young in the summer, going and picking up, apricot and peaches on a big scale, right? So
Yeah.
with your hands
Wow.
and stuff in the field. That was probably one of my first paycheck. And then I went into finishing I did an internship in Paris and got my first job actually for a British company. And at the time, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Kind of ventured into marketing and ended up working for this um, company, British company that bought the distributor of the French company, and it was in the tobacco industry, believe it or not. So
Hmm.
started in a very unhealthy kind of environment. Although my job was all about unrolling tobacco, so it was kind of like natural product and this and that. But so just ventures. That was my first job and my first real paycheck per se, and that journey got me, actually, we're talking about the UK, got me to move very quickly after my internship from Paris to England, where I work for the headquarters were based in Nottingham, in the middle of in the Midlands, in the middle of
Wow.
England, and got a foray into marketing and international marketing and launching new brands into developing markets and stuff, which was at 23, 24 was kind of like surreal in a way, traveling to Eastern Europe, Central Asia, the Middle East, all places I've never been to in my life before, was very eye-opening and humbling because of the different level of living in those places as well, quite a bit. And but I was like, this is awesome. I could have made a lot of money staying in this place, but something was disconnected in me about the tobacco angle, if you will, after having been an athlete and being healthy. And so,
Hmm.
I was part of a group of a young team, and I was the first one to kind of be like, I don't want to. I did this for a year and a half, and I was like, I don't want to do this moving forward. I need to change, like it's not aligned with my values anymore. And everybody thought I lost my mind, right? Because it was such a good career path potentially if you think materialistically about what you can get, and in that kind of industry to keep people, you get paid very well. You get promoted, you have a lot of opportunities, you get great pension, you get a lot of stuff, right? But for me, that was not the most important thing. So I made a switch. And then that's when I stumbled upon this very unique kind of company that was in the northeast of England called Quorn Foods. And it was actually way before Beyond Meat and Impossible Burgers and all those guys. It
Yeah.
was the first meat-free product to be developed, and it's based on fermentation. So it's like a fungi product. So it's a microprotein, come from fungi family, and it was fermented like yogurt or or cheese will be fermented, and it create that kind of like texture, which becomes, once it's frozen, like meat, right? Similar texture. So packed my bag and just ended up moving to this small company in the northeast of England, Didn't know what I was getting myself into, and was the first foray in the food industry, and I never turned back after that. So
Wow. That's amazing. I remember corn, and when it first came out, it was like before the craze, before the trends, and
yeah,
was early in.
very early on.
And so you got involved in the food industry. You kind of see, it's interesting. Like when our first professional experiences leave their mark, teach us skills, create interests and passions, or teach us our values as you kind of learned where you wanted to be and maybe where you might want to go next. So then, fast forward, I guess, what are some of the other professional moments or turning points that kind of led you now to, you know, be the founder and owner of your own company?
Yeah, so so the first job was a big corporation. Second one was a small kind of venture, but owned by AstraZeneca, which is a big company in the pharmaceutical industry nowadays. And so after that, I was like, corporate, interesting, but I don't know about that. And so I kind of pivoted a bit after working with a digital agency in it was early 2000, and I would say 2000, and working with them on digital. It was the start of Facebook and all those things. And through my career, starting in marketing in those very different places of the world, and then working marketing in food, you learn to tell stories and you learn how people engage. And for me, it was like I was seeing a huge opportunity with digital on how we could create experience that get people to talk about brands. So word of mouth wise, right? So I did a 360 and partnered with my digital agency, and we created a business called the Gossip Agency, which was all about how do we create conversation for brands with consumers, right? And that was the first experience into learning about what you know and what you don't know. Because we think, oh yeah, I have a great idea, it's going to be great, right? But ideas are only the start of something. It's all about execution and how you learn and the experience and how you can sell something, right, that can make money. And for me, that journey was kind of challenging and didn't go very well. But I learned a lot about myself, and you learn more when things don't go your way than when they go your way, actually. And so it was one of my first stumble and failure kind of thing, saying, okay, I'm gonna be a big guy, I'm gonna go on my own type thing, not leave the corporate world. And then you're like, maybe I made a mistake here, I don't know. And so that was kind of a very pivotal moment for me, because I was kind of like, at this stage it was around 2004, roughly 2000, and I was kind of a bit stuck, like what I didn't want to go back to corporate, but was not sure. Food industry, I wanted to do something in that. And just through this relationship at Corn Food, talking about like the communities and relationship you build along your career, I had a great friendship with this gentleman at Corn that was British and moved to the US to launch Corn Food in the US. I was
Mm,
more doing the European side for them. And he was like, look, I love what you do, and I'm trying to create a consulting firm that help food companies from Europe that has very unique and healthy product launched in the US. And why don't you come and join me? And one of my biggest goal was like, after playing basketball in the 90s in California, I was like, how do I come back to this country at some point and live here? Yeah, right. So it was like, wow, this is a huge potential opportunity. And similarly at the same time, when I was looking for myself, I was kind of, we all at some point get stuck in time, depending on the phasing of our life, right? And we also had a lot of baggage that come from our childhood and things. And for me, I always felt like, I was always different and unique, and I always kind of did different stuff, right? And was never afraid to take risks, but I never really went 120% for it. There was always a stoppage in the back that made me do it, but not fully, right? And so at the same time, one of my good friends was like, hey, I'm going to Tony Robbins in
mm,
London to this thing called Unleash the Power, Release the Power Within, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know about that stuff, this American high five and whatnot and jumping around. I was like, I don't know if it's for me. And I ended up going with him, and it had more impact on me than it ever did on him, funnily enough, right? And that kind of was a very specific moment about kind of like trying to face your fears and also your blockage that you might have that come from, you don't even realize that they come from your childhood or certain things that might happen in your life. And that moment for
Yeah.
me just was the unlocker of like freeing yourself, if you will, of all those kind of blocks, and also gave me a roadmap that I carry to this day. I call this the path to success and happiness, where I have like 5 blocks basically that I've created with this: one around health, one around work, one around passion and travels, which I love traveling to. And since 2005, when I moved to the US in 2006, I started this. I have this book now of it, because every year I gave myself goals, and I kind of look at how I'm growing, because it's like, our life journey, we don't realize, but everybody's like, oh, it's tough, and we go through up and down, but as long as the curve is going up overall, that's what you want to be doing. So yeah, so Tony Robbins was the kind of unlocker at the point where I was stuck, and this opportunity came about that changed my life to come and move to the US in 2006. And I've been here since 2006. And I brought something very unique with me through my relationship in food, again, that became super successful in America, which you might have heard of. It's called Go-Go Squeeze. It's the first fruit
Yeah.
squeezers for kids. And so when I was at Corn Food, when I was at another company, Cadbury, and in meantime, we haven't talked about Cadbury. I was there for a very short period of time. We were distributed in France by this French company that has those fruit squeezers. So I kept in touch with those folks. And when I moved here, we were looking for brands that could fit them and come to the US that didn't exist here. And so Go-Go Squeeze was called Pompote in France. It was a very unique product, and there was nothing in the US like this. So to cut a long story short, I convinced those guys to come and check the US market. That was my first client with this gentleman from England. And we did the whole kind of market analysis opportunity, developed the brand, adapted the brand for the US with a US agency, and became Go-Go, and launched it, at the worst time ever, which was 2007, 2008, when the economy
Mm-hmm.
tanked. I mean, we are kind of at a weird spot the last few days on that kind of stuff. And you know what? And it was a very great experience of something that nobody believed in, and nobody had, so we got let to do what we wanted to do with it, because people were like, it's not gonna work. And the first 2 years were a bit tough because of the economy and everything else. And 2010, it just started taking off like crazy. And at that point, the French founder was like, I want you to come and run it. And so I left the agency to become the #1 employee of Go-Go. And today, it's a huge success story. It's over 600 million in sales. It just broke the code for applesauce for kids in a pouch. It's the biggest one. And so that was my
Wow.
first big move, big gamble. But I left Go-Go Squeeze because I saw an opportunity for an adult version of it in the same pouch. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can do that for myself, right? What a crazy idea.
Wow. Well, there was this, I mean, you kind of have on at least I'm looking at your career path. And did you also work for a baker at in the
Yeah, so
meantime, the
so
process?
so yeah, while I was transiting from Go-Go, because we became so popular and it became bigger and it became more corporate, Um, and I wanted to have the freedom to have fun and enjoy. And I thought, if you can do it once, you can do it again, but you don't realize how lucky you are sometimes with things. Everybody talks about, it's all about talent and skills and this and that. Yes, there's a big part of it that is about this. It's about having the foresight to see some things that people don't see and being the first to do it. But most of the time, we don't realize the timing impact, right?
Yeah.
Being at the right time at the right place is a huge part of success. And I think it's super underrated in the process. So for me, I was like, oh, I can do that again. For me, it's, for myself, it's easy. Very, very wrong thinking.
Okay, okay, okay. So then there was this, okay,
So
grass
so
is
sorry, yeah.
greener.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and then
while I was thinking about my idea, I helped another French company launch in the US. The gentleman that was in charge of the international market for Go-Go Squeeze ended up leaving to go to this big baker in France,
mm,
industrial baker, and they had this super cool product, and he was obsessed too with the US, so he was like nagging me to help him with it. And the idea, in essence, was very good, and that's when you realize that the degree of innovation and timing is very important. And we thought we will have another slam dunk with this. It was basically crustless bread, right? So sliced bread with no crust. And they had this unique technology in France to bake the bread with no crust. And it was pretty cool, right? Um, Except that what we didn't realize was that one, the bread industry in the US is extremely costly because you basically rent the shelf space and so you have to put your bread on shelf. You have to take everything that's spoiled. It costs a lot of money. So it's a very, very tough. So the margins are very thin. And second, you know, the innovation was interesting because we knew that mom cut the crust for the kids' sandwich and stuff. But it's very easy to do that stuff, right? You can do that very quickly. Trying like having this kind of product for kids, no spoon, no mess, is a whole different ball game. As far as the product need, right? So
mhm.
that stuff kind of didn't really work in the US. It failed actually. I think it was a combination of like not super strong innovation, and also we positioned it to mainstream, competing with Wonder Bread and other things when it should have been more like a more premium kind of added value bread for kids with all grains and other things. And the problem was they didn't have the technology to do more complex product, right?
Yeah.
Um,
So so it sounds like every time you work somewhere, you build a relationship with someone that wants to work with you again. Like, what is your secret at that?
I don't know. I mean, with me, it's like, I'm very, what you get, what you see is what you get type thing. And, but I just love creating stuff, right? I love creating stuff with people. And I think that's, and we keep saying, a lot of companies, they talk about this, like, our best talent or our best asset are people, but nobody really actually delivers on those things. But it's true, like experiences are developed by people, and they are the things that are unique, and that's how you build things that are different, right? And for me, that's what I love to do. I love to build things that are a bit different, that maybe people haven't thought about, and do it with people that are have the same mindset and are cool.
Yeah. So then you had the guts
Yeah.
to launch Gutzy Organic, and you've had like some foray, some movement into foundership and co-foundership, and like you've had some success at this point, and you've coming off of probably a big win, but also then another loss, and then like a loss. So it's an interesting time. What led to the desire to launch, and I guess what it was that experience like in the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, so when I was at Gogo Squeeze, many parents were like, "Look, we love, we love something for us adult with this. Why is there no product for us? Why is it just for kids, right?" And so that was the obvious thing, right? Well, let's do an adult one, right? And so initially, before we like our business today is Gutzy, right? So it's an adult pouch. It's like blended fruit, organic fruit, and veggies that are good for your gut because we have prebiotic fiber, we have ginger, dandelion, a lot of those kind of gut healing ingredients in it. But initially, when I started the idea, it was not called Gutzy. It was
Mm-hmm.
called energy fruits. And the whole premise of the idea was like, let's not go premium, let's go mainstream straight away. So again, big mistake, you learn to, you know, your burning steps. First warning. And then we wanted to become the vitamin water of fruit snacking. So it was like similar format, fruits in a pouch with vitamins, right? The problem was we had those little chunks of fruits inside, and people didn't like it. They didn't
Mm.
like to have it in a pouch. Any kind of texture in a pouch is a bit weird for people, and we could not get any distribution. So at that point, I came out very strong in terms of, you know, um, and it was tough to find a co-packer. And before, I didn't realize working with a French company, I didn't have to worry about the manufacturing. I didn't have to worry about the inventory or having the funds to fund the business, right? All those things I didn't think about. I just had to market it and sell it, right?
Yeah.
And so that foray was like finding a manufacturer was very hard. The product was not great. And, at that point, I had my friends and family invested. I broke my 401k. Things were not going so good, but I very deeply believed in the format, right? We just didn't have the right ingredient in it. But the pressure mounted, right? So much like letting people down, all this stuff. You're like, here we go again. I'm gonna fall short, instead of like, when you do it for yourself, you fall short, right? So all
Mhm.
those old thoughts come back into your mind, kind of stuff. And at that point, I started kind of like physically and mentally fall apart. Having acid
Yeah.
reflux, rashes. I was kind of depressed. It was tough for me to get up in the morning. I ended up working in New York City to pay my rent in the deli downstairs in my building every night. But during those time when the store was quiet, I didn't want to give up, and I was like, I'm gonna find a way. And I was reading stuff about other founders that had stumbled, or founders that positioned their business on a platform that had some kind of more purpose, if you will, like the founder of Patagonia, like the folks that started Method, which is the cleaning detergent method,
Yep.
and so on, and just really trying to get inspired by, purpose. And through that journey, it got so bad for me physically and mentally. I ended up, I was like, I need to do something. And a friend of mine recommended I go and see a herbalist in New York.
Mm.
And that was kind of a pivotal moment where I discovered the power of plants and gut health to heal my body. And so a lot of the ingredients you see today in the product are stem from that journey. So I had no idea what was prebiotic before, plant fibers, ginger, dandelion, turmeric. This is all bottled into this experience. And it was kind of the aha moment to say, hey, it had so much impact on me, physically and mentally, that if I go through that journey and I can heal myself and with the power plant, there's a huge need for this. And we were still close to the original idea per se, but we had to pivot. And that's when the business became Gutzy in 2018.
Mm.
We rebranded and repositioned, and that's when, through again relationship, the founder of Gogo Squeeze was like, I followed what you did before with the other one. I was looking, but that was but this, I'm very interested. I'm gonna back you up. And
Mm.
so that was the change. And we could have been bankrupt so many times. And it was just the power of resilience and belief, deep belief in something, and also being pragmatic, right? And learning about, okay, what we need to change. Because I had got at that point when we were Energy Fruit, I had a bit of seed capital from a family office in New York City. And they were like, you are out of your mind. Like, we started doing this, now you want to change and stuff. And I was like, we either change or we're dead. So what do we got to lose, right?
Yeah.
And we pushed it, and we bought them out. We bought them out of the business, and basically we never looked back. And that's from I love the name because it's for me it's basically everything that's in that name is my experience bottled from since I'm 6 years old. That Gutzy and this that the American spirit, and it's a play on word
Mm.
between gut
Mm-hmm.
health and also being gutsy in life, which is go for what you believe, spend your energy on things that you can be good at, that you love doing, you know, and don't give up, because it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worthwhile, right?
Uh, I see a movie in the future.
I don't
And it's
know.
gonna have you. It's gonna have you shooting basketball in the beginning, though. So, I guess at this point, what's next?
So what's next is exciting, because I've been on this business now for 10 years, right? So I started this idea 10 years ago, and it's been very slow for us to much faster since we pivoted to Gutzy in 2018. But what's next is exciting, because that's the exciting part now. We have a traction, we're getting traction. We are in about 6,000 supermarkets in the US in the fresh produce section. with a product that's very good and super on trend with what's going on with gut health, and also a lot of the issues with American
Yeah.
diets and chronic disease going on, and all this junk food and all those additives that you find anywhere. So gut health is really trending. We were one of the first brand to actually take prebiotic out of the supplement aisle and put it into a food format, into a supermarket, into
Mm-hmm.
a genuinely good product. So we are really at the start now of an acceleration, and we're starting building the team. We're going to be able to deploy marketing. We're about to launch with Walmart National. So there's a lot of cool stuff coming for us. We're going to see, obviously, how the current environment is going to impact us, as a young company, but I feel pretty bullish even then because we make our product in the US. Obviously, there's always impact somewhere. But we've went through this with COVID, right? We launched Gutzy in 2018, and COVID happened in 2020, and we were not selling because our product is refrigerated, so we were not selling online. Then COVID happened, people don't go to store anymore. How the
Yeah.
heck are they going to discover your brand? And
Yeah.
we survived, and we were gritty, and we rolled our sleeves, and we managed to grow that year, believe it or not, which was nuts. So
Oh,
if we can do that in 2020, we can sustain anything. So we're very excited.
yeah. Because we can all still go to the stores, and listeners, I imagine, are getting a little hungry and curious on how to try Gutsy. So, where can they go try your product?
Yeah, so our product is in supermarket in the produce section when you come in. That's what we call the perimeter of the store, where the good stuff tend to be nowadays, because it's
Mm-hmm.
it's the freshest kind of refrigerated stuff. And so it's in produce for a reason. It's in produce because we want to give a very convenient format and access for people to eat more fruit and veggie, specifically organic fruit and veg. When you think about the stat, and it's part of the problem with the standard American diet, is we don't eat enough fruit and veg. 1 in 10 American eats 5 a day that we should be eating. And the problem with that is when you don't get enough fruit and veggies, you don't get fiber. 1 in 20 people get enough fiber. And fiber has been this very unsexy, my grandma kind of Metamucil stuff, right? Uh, but we're changing and trying to modernize it in a way that's in a format with fruit and veg. And so that's what we produce, right? And our product are super delicious. I know every founder is going to tell you their product is great, but we have great repeat purchase because I think part of my heritage is like, if you're gonna create a food product just for functionality, very few people are going to eat it or buy it again. It has to
Yeah.
taste amazingly good. And I think my French palate loves a little bit of sweetness, and we don't add any sugar, but it's very fine-tuned, blended, delicious fruit and veg, very diverse. Every product has 5 different type of plants, so you have the diversity as well in it, and it has all the functionality with 7 to 8 grams of fiber, which is like almost 30% of your daily value of fiber, with this super great prebiotic from acacia, which come from Africa, which is great for gut health. So
So I'm sure listeners are curious. You can also go to gutsyorganic.com. I'll put the links in the show notes. Check out your local store and grab a pack and try it. So to send us off though, David, you shared a bit about kind of your health deteriorated and it led to this amazing insight around kind of this update to the product too. One tip for all our listeners who might be suffering from a little bit of burnout, a little bit of stress. What is your favorite go to?
a very good point, especially when you're a founder, because you know, you can become obsessed with, everything is about the business, and you don't take time off, or
Yep.
you don't recharge, and then you can quickly burn out, right? So for me, there's few things that I started incorporating. Obviously, your diet is very important for that. So since that journey and experience, I've been experimenting and a lot with plant-based, and how to integrate more protein in my diet and all this stuff. So reading about this stuff, and testing with food has been a where I can like get my mind off a little bit. Reading, big reader. I think for me, it's like it really switched my mind when I'm burning out, because I'll take a book, totally different things in a business book, and just break the pattern, right, and read something different. So reading is big, and then obviously basketball still to this day. So
Yeah. So you gave me interesting mental, physical, and nutritional.
yeah,
So if someone's burning out or you're struggling, look to the basics of health and hit a couple of the different categories, and you might even get inspired to create a new product like
exactly.
David did. So thank you for your time, and I can't wait to try some Gutsy and to get a little bit more Gutsy in my life. So fix my gut and to be a little bit more resilient. So
Thank
thanks
you
for
so much
sharing.
for having me.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Now get out there and live fearlessly.